As Leland said, Olsen is a heck of a teacher in the subject of English and literature. It's a good thing that he's not an accountant, because this was about 15 years ago, and we finish, we have a twilight meet. In actual fact, we're going to have one this Thursday. And so I'm up in the press box, and all the teams come up, and they have to pay entry fees. So I'm up there, and I'm getting all the entry fees, and some people have paid cash, and some people pay, by check. And we've got it in an envelope there, and we put it all in the envelope for Olsen. And the meet ends, and this was probably, May 15th. And I go home and write up my story and that, and I don't go back into that press box till the 25th of August to get ready for football. That envelope is still there. The money's still there. The checks are still there, uncashed. I pick it up. I walk over to his office, and I said, "Is your budget a little light?" "Oh, wow, we could probably use that." To say that our track program is loosely run would be an understatement. Sometimes I think we ought to play calliope music from the loudspeakers, because you always need to have a tent over the circus. But for 52 years, it works. And it works because of all of you, and it works because of the gentleman that I'm introducing right now, the man we all know as Olsen, Paul Olsen.
It's the bottom of the ninth inning. You're in the field with a 1-point lead. 2 outs. The bases are loaded. Most in that situation would be praying that the ball gets hit to someone else. But you guys out there said, "Hit the ball to me. I know what to do with it." For 52 years, I have watched you guys flawlessly field that ball. And look what you have done in track, in field, with your friends, your families, in your work, in your calling. I've followed as closely as possible. Hit the ball to me. You said it again and again. I have to digress a little bit from all the attacks. And the worst part is that every damn one is true. I did learn a moral code from my father. Some of you heard it. I've told this story. It's true. But it carries on into my later life, and I'll go back to where I first learned this. But I can remember my first year at Augustana. I was 10 years old. And I got paid $5,000 a year. And that took a cut to come here from the high school I was at. And I had car payments and house, rent payments. And I was out of toilet paper. And I grabbed about 6 rolls out of the stadium storage room, walked out the door with 6 rolls of paper, got to my car, and I said, "This is too low." And I took it back. Because I just somehow knew that there were some things you could do and some things you can't do. And a story I've shared too often, but it's so true, is that when I was a little boy with my brother, we had a friend that would steal cigarettes from his mom and dad who owned a restaurant. And we would go out into the woods and smoke. My brother was 9, I was 5. I didn't inhale. And we would come back from the woods smoking, and we'd grab any kind of raw berries we could from anything. to cover up the smoke smell so we could walk by Mom and say, "Hi, Mom." And the smoke, she never caught us. But then one night, my brother, again, he's 9, goes down in the basement with our friend Jack, who's took the cigarettes from the restaurant, and they're smoking in the basement. And I'm up sitting in a kitchen chair. My dad can smell something in the basement. He walks down there and he said, "It's blue with smoke. You could cut it with a knife. Have you guys been smoking?" My brother says, "No." David, upstairs. Jack, get home. He watches David upstairs. He puts David over his lap. He looks at me and he spanks my brother on the butt and says, "That's not for smoking, that's for lying." And I learned a moral lesson there. And then he said, "Have you ever smoked?" Got him. Yes. And he took me over his lap and spanked me and said, "That's not for lying, that's for smoking." First thing I got to do is, this is overwhelming. I'm touched, I'm humbled. I'm mostly, though, grateful. Grateful for the journey that I've been allowed to accompany you guys and your families throughout those 4 crucial years. I'm grateful for that. I got an email today from a hurdler, now a doctor. And he said this: "I can't be there today in person, but I want to state something that was a part of my time at Augie that brought us all together as a family. Augustana Track made us all believe in ourselves and each other. Believe in ourselves and each other. It's a team thing. As a team thing, I have a list of people to contact, to thank, and here it is. But I can't go through all that, it's too long, because it's all of you. But I sure can say to my wife, who was a chaplain for 27 years, an award-winning chaplain, who taught me how to listen. Just this morning, she reminded me again how to listen. You're wearing that? And I listened. And I put on this sport coat, but I had to put a name tag on it because not one guy recognized me with a sport coat. "Who is that?" "Oh, I went right past you." Well, it's a team thing. I've got 2 wonderful sons. I'm so proud of them. I'm proud of what they've accomplished in their careers, but most of all, I'm proud of the way they are partners to their wives and the way they are dads to their kids. I can't imagine anybody doing it better. And I'm grateful that you were in my life for those years at home. I'm glad we still have a barn full of mice and mice poop that we get to spend the summers with. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the team, Kyle and your whole crew, and that we got to give them a hand. Putting this thing on is just fantastic. I'm honored. I'm grateful. Thank you for that. And I'm grateful for the stories that I heard from Craig, from Eric, from Leland. And I know we could have stories from every single one of you. And so we're gonna take turns. We're gonna stay here until Monday. We have a lot of stories. And I can remember my kids here when they were very little, and my wife would say, "Don't bring them to the game, you won't watch them." "I'll watch them." So there's a basketball game on. It's Millikan. It's probably 1986. Millikan has the best team along with Augie in the conference. It's a great game. And my kids are over there in a corner bouncing on a high jump pit, I thought. And all of a sudden, in a fast break with Millikan, there's Eric in the middle of the basketball floor. Millikan's coming down the floor, rip-roaring, and Steve Yant, thank goodness, was on the bench, jumped up, scooped Eric up, and he didn't get run over, and he's alive today because of Steve Yant. Well, we have a T-shirt. Here it is. And our guys have this. Augustana cross country. And we give it out right away, early in the first meeting that we get together, the first meeting. And on the back it says, so we can inculcate this philosophy right off the bat, the journey is the goal. Well, we've journeyed from 6 lanes of rubber and spotty pieces of white walls into one of the few 9-lane tracks in the United States. In the beginning, in the conference, there was no 10K. There was no steeplechase. There was no hammer. We didn't have laser timing, but we had watches and a lot of really old faculty. We'd gather together after the race and say, well, how did you go? What did you pick? Where did you go? And the first guy would say, well, I had the winner in 49.4. And the other guy said, well, I had third place in 49.1. And we had to sort that out, and we did. And I think we screwed more kids out of national championships than we ever could have. Our pole vault pit, I drove a truck over to Sears Manufacturing, loaded up the truck probably 10 times with ripped off John Deere tractor seats that were sponge rubber covered with vinyl. I tore the vinyl off, threw it away. We recycled it. I don't think we even knew what recycling was. And then packed that foam rubber into a big old net and threw it out on the top or underneath the crossbars and the standards. You had to be a daredevil to want to go 12 feet. We had that for the high jump. You know why they didn't do the Fosbury flop then? They would all be dead. So they had to land on their feet. Well, we didn't have good stuff, but there was one constant. We loved the journey. One of my favorite poems is about that journey, and it's a favorite. I'm going out to clean the pasture spring. I'll only stop to rake the leaves away and wait to watch the water clear I may. I shan't be gone long, you come too. I'm going out to fetch the little calf that's standing by the mother. It's so young it totters when she licks it with her tongue. And I shan't be gone long, you come too. He's the poet, Robert Frost. He's not asking you to help him reconcile your credit card. He's not asking to help me buy a used car, balance the checkbook. It's the most impractical thing in his life. We're going to go out and rake the leaves away off this spring that's been out there for thousands of years and been doing just fine. And after that, we'll stir up the water, but then we're going to wait and watch the water clear I may. And that's what he wants you to join him on. And wait to watch the water clear I may. We shan't be gone long. You come too. And then we're going to go out and fetch this little calf. Calves don't need fetching. They'll do just fine out there with mom. We're going to bring him back to the barn. We don't need to do that, but I'm going out to fetch the little calf that's standing by the mother. It's so young, it totters when she licks it with her tongue. Just born. New creation. I got to see this. I got to see this beauty. You come too. I think that's our track journey. 50 years. And I get to be lucky enough to have done that with you and you and you and you. And look at that. People have asked, how do you feel? I just feel grateful. 1967, again, I was 5. It was my first year at Augie. We had just the day before put a conference championship under our belt, and the guys were ready to turn in their uniforms because the season was over. I said, no, keep them. We're going to nationals. This is 1967. You didn't have to qualify to go to nationals. You just had to think you were good enough. You just had to have somebody say, I think you're good enough to go. Let's go. We put 6 guys on a plane to Utah. I haven't seen everybody here yet tonight, but I know one of them was here. Ogden, Utah. I drove my car. They flew. So I could continue after the meet on to the University of Oregon and begin my graduate study. They ran hurdles jumped, sprinted through, and when it was all over, Augustana had the first All-Americans in its college history. 6 All-Americans and a school record in the 4x1 that lasted for 13 years. They didn't know they could do that. We went out there for the journey. We were going to get to see the Salt Lake, the mountains and the ski hills. And by the way, I guess we got to run a track meet too. The journey was the goal, but as Craig Lyon told us, the All-American status, the fast times, the good distances, they just took care of themselves. 13-year record. Everybody out there, all of you, have focused on the journey ever since. And not just with your track team, with your family, your partners, your spouses, your kids, your friends, your community. And while the numbers are pretty good with wins, All-Americans, academic All-Americans, top of the nation's school records, conference titles, national rankings, I'm going to bet that very few of you can remember those numbers. But I'm going to bet that all of you can remember and probably still occasionally gather with the guys who are on your team. After that first year, the next year, the national meet was in San Francisco. Again, you just had to go if you wanted to go. Well, we competed in the meet at San Francisco. It's a big deal. We split up to sightsee. The guys who were 21 and older went on their own, and I took the guys who were under 21. I can't remember why I did that. And we agreed to meet at Fisherman's Wharf at 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. Well, I got there with those under 21 kids at 1 o'clock, and the other guys were already there, standing in the street with about 30 people from who knows where in the world learning the Augustana school song. I just stood there and thought, whoa, what a journey. I don't even remember how we did in that meet, but I will never forget seeing those kids direct strangers who just learned the Augustana school song. 4 of those people were parents, and they sent all of their kids to Augie. That's not true. Some might not remember the dual cross-country meet with Valparaiso University. There's 2 guys in front that do. But I'll bet you remember eating together at the Village Inn and 7 of you enjoying the French fries left behind by the family that sat next to us. And then one of our seniors got the bill because I looked like a 9th grader. And who on the team in 1980, when we were looking for a conference win after 4 years of second, remembers the winning score? But I bet you do remember that our best sprinter, a Hall of Fame sprinter who could win 4 events, showing up before the bus left in a neck brace holding a note saying he couldn't run. We all saw the championship disappear until he said, "April Fool." Where's Mike Meyer? Shame on you. The first time I took a team to Notre Dame for a cross-country meet was in the 70s. And on the way home, I got a ticket from a cop who said he'd been following me for 20 miles. Yeah, said one of the guys in the rear seat that faced backwards who had been watching that cop car for the last 20 minutes. Yeah, he pulled up behind us a long time ago. That lack of attention occurred later when again Mike Meyer parked the school van directly in front of a huge sign down by the University of Illinois that said, "No parking here, you will be towed." The sign was written in English. Mike could read. We got towed. And then until movies on the bus ruined it, Euchre and Pinochle and Battleship replaced the books brought along that were rarely opened, I would get on the bus passing out paper sheets with grids on them so guys could draw their battleships and their destroyers on the back, and we'd start playing Battleship. The track team owned 12 decks of cards, 2 always kept in the first aid kit, because it's the first aid. Are you feeling okay? Let's play cards. I never lost a game of euchre or pinochle in 50 years. That's the same kind of thinking that our dear Dave Rath, the great sports information director, maybe the best in the United States, and that's certifiable, in fact, and a former top 7 runner on a team that was 4th in the nation, he has this always to offer graduates. If you aren't an All-American 10 years after you graduate, it's your own damn fault. Or that's kind of like my own thinking when freshmen, the upperclassmen don't do it. The freshmen say, "Oh, you were a quarter miler. Did you run 46?" I said, "Yep, I did, but I wasn't done." That was the truth. And that is also the truth that once I asked an assistant coach, "Eric Jurdy, are you here?" He's running for office, so he's raising money. I asked him to get the printed meet results while I helped get the guys on the bus. Once on the bus, I don't take roll. I just say, "Everybody got their seat partner?" "All good," that's the reply. And we were on our way without that assistant coach. And he was my seat partner. And then there's the spring trip we took to Indiana State University. You know, spring trip, lacrosse says, hey, we go to Florida. Well, we go to Indiana, baby. That's a spring trip. It's a little colder down there than it is here. The night before the meet, we went to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the next day, after a lot of good discussion about that, I've always thought that I bet there's not a track team in the country that analyzes a movie that they go to the night before. I remember our dear Pete Homer leading a discussion on eternity after watching one science fiction movie that went on, and the discussion went on for hours and hours. That's the kind of thing we did. And the meet starts the next day. Weather's not very good, and we win. Notre Dame is there. University of Indiana is there. Indiana State is there. A lot of what are now called D1 schools. And we'd already won 2 events. And the rain started, and the wind picked up, and they called the meet. It's off. I asked the coach, "What's up?" "What do you mean it's off?" "Well, we can't get any good performances in this weather." So I told our team that. "We're not going to get any good performances, so I guess we're going to call it off." What? They, not our guys, they that called off the meet surely didn't get the idea that the journey is the goal. We just want to compete. And if I don't jump as far as I did on a nicer day, I don't care. I just want to compete. But not every spring trip was fun. Nor, and there's a lot, probably everybody out there knows, nor is every leg of the journey joy. One trip for sure. If you were there, no one will forget the news we received while checking out of our hotel in Terre Haute, Indiana. Martin Luther King had been assassinated. Sprinters and throwers, jumpers and hurdlers, black and white. A lot of us lost our innocence that day. But we were awakened to a new sense of racial justice, one that had never hit our friends so hard before. I received another letter this week from John Jacobs, conference champion in the javelin class of 1972. And he said this: "I think of those years in school, the rigors of college, issues of Vietnam, civil rights, student rights, sit-ins, protests, earth ecology awareness. And track provided a way to breathe and focus and do something which had a tangible outcome. We became engaged in the world, and track brought some sanity to an otherwise wobbly environment." And there was Vietnam. I got a pass. I got a pass on Vietnam because when I graduated from college, they had deferments for teachers. I got a pass. I came to Augustana, the lottery's in full flight, and kids are getting low numbers. I think I wrote 12 letters that year for sincere, conscientious objection. For kids who thought we shouldn't be in that war. A sure place winner in his event, the year we hosted it home in 1969, skipped the conference meet to protest the war. I am sorry to this day that I disciplined him, because later I got it. What was 5-6 points in a track meet? Well, some of his friends were learning to shoot a gun. Another, after a weekend of seeing too much up-close coverage of the war, literally could not work out on Monday. And I told him, just go home until you can. When I came into the stadium after practice, he was sitting in his locker crying. A former Augustana student body president, a white man who went on to grad school at Yale, was murdered by the Ku Klux Klan while he marched in protest for racial justice. Peter, Paul, and Mary, the most famous folk singing group of the time, then asked us, how many roads must a man walk down before they call him a man? But every generation has a different story. How do you deal with a bad race, or a C when you wanted an A, a broken relationship, a refusal to med school, a low draft number? We do not compete in a vacuum. And I think it's not the sport of track that helps us to navigate life. It's the teammates and the love generated by team. Listen to a poem about a track race, but it's really a poem about love. Hear these words: my sinews tightened, my thrill of 1,000 races. Do you remember how you won that last race? How you flung your body at the start? How your spikes ripped the cinders in the stretch? How you catapulted through the tape? Do you remember? Don't you think my sinews tightened at those first few strides? And as you flew into the stretch, was not my thrill of 1,000 races in your blood? And at your final drive through the finish line, did not my shout tell of the triumphant ecstasy of victory? Live as I've taught you to run, boy. It's a short dash. Dig your starting holes deep and firm. Lurch out of them into the straightaway with all the power that is in you. Look straight ahead to the finish line. Run straight, run high, run hard, save nothing, and finish with an ecstatic burst that carries you hurtling through the tape to victory. The speaker is with that runner, but make it a thrower, make it a jumper, make it a volleyball player, make it a singer. It's a connection. And a reminder that we do not live by bread alone or victories alone. We live with the most powerful force in the universe. It's love. Every parent out there knows what it feels like to watch your kid slam the volleyball for Leland, to run the race, not win the race, to run the race. Your sinews tighten, you're holding your breath. Every coach out there knows why you're so exhausted after a meet. You've held your breath for 68 kids through 14 different races, and you're worn out. My sinews tightened. My shout shared the ecstasy. I get to teach a novel called Their Eyes Are Watching God. It is one of the great novels of all American literature. I've taught it for years, and there's a scene in which a grandmother tells her granddaughter that she oughta love her husband because he has 60 acres, a house that's paid for, and the only piano in town. The granddaughter wrestles with that oughta all her life until she realizes that this safety and protection and security and respectable marriage are all that Grandma wants for her. And the granddaughter then uses a turn on the biblical axiom from Jesus that says we do not live by bread alone, and says to her, but Grandma, all you care about is sow belly and cornbread. That's all that matters. Love ought to matter. And Zora Neale Hurston wasn't around when Wordsworth, 2 centuries earlier than that, wrote this, maybe the most beautiful poetic lines ever. There's a comfort in the strength of love. It'll make a thing endurable, which else would overset the brain or break the heart. Every guy out there, at some point, because we don't compete, run, jump, throw in a vacuum, had their brain overset, had their heart broken. But there's a comfort in the strength of love. It makes the thing endurable, which else would overset the brain or break the heart. This love creates inspiration, and it's why. Last night, our team, in 48-degree weather and a pretty strong wind, at 11 o'clock at night, they'd been there since 10 o'clock in the morning, ran back and forth across that track. How many of you guys have done that? Back and forth across the track. On this side, yeah, go. And this side, yeah, go. In 9 minutes and 12 seconds later, we had another national meet qualifier. They went crazy with support because we have another t-shirt. Every guy's got this too. Augustana track and field, Augustana cross country. Inspiration is contagious. All three of those guys talked about that. It's contagious. But I think inspiration at its very depths is something about love. Then there's this journey, this contagious inspiration, this love. It all adds up. And every guy on our team has this t-shirt. The president is here. We spend $6,422 a year on t-shirts. Augustana, track and field. Augustana, cross country, is a celebration of life. Everything we celebrate. We celebrate. There's an ice cream place in the Quad Cities. Jeff, they know what whiteys are, baby. We celebrate everything. And it comes from this. It's another great American novel by Alice Walker called The Color Purple. It's been a Broadway hit. It's a movie hit. It's a big, big piece of literature in our canon. And in that novel, one character says to another, "It pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it." We didn't win the conference title this year after 3 in a row, 1 indoor and 2 outdoor. We got second. We celebrated because there was a lot of purple that day. There was, and we can list them. Not just the guy that ran faster than he ever had. Not just the guy who didn't score, but when we asked afterwards, name the highlight of the meet. But once you hear a highlight, you can't say that thing again. We could have gone on for an hour. This highlight, that highlight, this highlight, that highlight. And going back to when we created this t-shirt, Inspiration is Contagious, we asked kids, what was the most inspirational race of the day, throw of the day, jump of the day? And it says, our man who didn't score a point, who won the slow heat of the 5,000 that motivated everybody to achieve that weekend, 67 personal bests. Inspiration is contagious. And it makes us celebrate. And you guys are good at celebrating the purple. Because it ticks God off if we go past that color purple in the field somewhere and don't notice it. We celebrate aggressive, confident racing no matter what the time. We celebrate the guy who never scores a point in the conference meet but inspires everyone else to be at their best. All of you, one way or another, celebrate life and all its possibilities. I know that a lot of you have this memorized. I heard it already once today. The wealth of life is boundless. The wealth of life is as great as we can grasp. Can we ask for more? When, nevertheless, we do ask for more, then all the incomprehensible exists as well, all that we cannot grasp. As soon as we're able to reach out our hands for something, as soon as we get the feeling that something immediately it is. Can we ask for more? I think we've met our goal. I'm grateful, eternally, to have journeyed with you. We see purple. We do not live by bread alone. We know this journey is different, and we choose to make it different. We have this on a t-shirt too. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. And sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, and then took the other. Just as fair and having a better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. So I saved the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I and we took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. You have made all the difference, and I love you. Thank you.